Okay, so we shall begin. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I greet you with the Islamic greetings of peace. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salawatu wa salam ala rasulillah. I want to say thank you to our panelists for taking the time out of their very busy days to join us, to join the community and educate us on their activities and how they are involved in the refugee resettlement process here in New Jersey. And I want to thank our attendees who are tuning in today. We have had over 400 people register for this event, and we have had a lot of anticipation community members to join and learn from our expert panel. So before we begin, I want to allow our panelists to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their organization before we hop into our topics. We have a long list of topic discussions to cover, everything from housing to financial aid, employment and job opportunities, how local organizations can help in the refugee resettlement process, translators, education, immigration status for refugees, unaccompanied minors, and goods and donations, and many other things. At the end of the webinar, we'll have an opportunity for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to be on standby at the end to tune in and ask those questions vis-a-vis either the Q&A chat or we'll allow you to tune in and we'll unmute your mic so that you can ask your question directly to the panelists. We'll hopefully have Q&A at close to 7:30 and depending on how fast we can get through the material. There is a lot. So with that, we will jump right into it. I'm going to ask my top left here on my screen, Sikandar Khan, to kick us off with his introduction. Sikandar, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Saladin, for putting this together, and thank you everyone for taking the time off your busy schedule and joining in. My name is Sikandar Khan. I'm the director and founder of Global Emergency Response and Assistance. Our organization was founded in 2014 after I returned from my service in Afghanistan. Organization really focuses on the human rights and also responding to the basic needs and also advocacy. So we work in partnership with the United Nations. We are United Nations affiliated, works hand to hand with UNICEF and other organizations to make sure we help those in need. As right now, we are working with Afghan refugees that are coming in. So right now we're filling in the gap, whatever their needs are, to make sure we collect whatever items are in need to deliver to the base for their needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Sikandar. I'm going to ask Courtney from Church World Services.
Hi, thank you, everyone. My name is Courtney Madsen. I'm the Office Director for Church World Service, CWS, in Jersey City. CWS is a resettlement agency. We're obviously based in Jersey City and New Jersey, but we're also across the United States. Our Jersey City office opened in 2015 to serve refugees, asylees, asylum seekers, and other humanitarian migrants. I personally started working with refugees in 2006 at a resettlement office in Seattle and have worked in the headquarters of both the IRC and CWS. And I'm so appreciative of all of you being here and for this being organized tonight.
Thank you so much, Courtney. I'm going to ask Alan to introduce himself. I think you're on mute, Alan. I'm sorry.
Always an important detail. Thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Alan Mentha. I'm the Executive Director of Welcome Home Jersey City. We got our start in 2016 as a group of volunteers with Church World Service. We did apartment setups, met refugee families at the airport, showed them around their new neighborhoods, and sometimes brought them to their first doctor's appointments and other meetings. By the end of 2018, refugees had stopped arriving in Jersey City through the Reception and Placement Program. But we've become a 501c3 and shifted our focus to education, employment, and community building. We launched Fun Club, a weekly gathering of about 100 friends and volunteers where we help kids with homework, provide level ESL instruction to their parents, share a meal, and do a fun group activity together. One week, the activity might be a sewing class with sewing machines. The next week, it might be a soccer skills class. The following week, a dance class. This is one of our ways of helping the families we serve integrate into the community, form friendships. When the pandemic hit, we quickly pivoted to online programming with different programs 6 days a week. We made sure every child and adult had a Chromebook or other device. We began to provide material support to families on a scale that was actually very new for us. In the last couple of years, we'll have dispersed nearly $250,000 in hardship assistance. To be clear, we're not a resettlement agency, but we like to think that we augment and extend some of the resources provided by the agencies. In addition to CWS, we've worked with Catholic Charities of New York, HIAS, as well as organizations like First Friends of New Jersey and New York. And now we're very excited to partner with International Rescue Committee. Our real strength lies with our roots in the community. We live in the same communities as our friends. I live within a 10-minute walk in any direction of one of the families we serve. To the east and west, live Syrian families. To the south is an Egyptian family. To the north, a family from Eritrea. Our volunteers' children attend the same schools as our refugee friends and attend the same summer camps. Our kids play together and attend each other's birthdays. You know, home is an idea. It's not an apartment or a house. And I believe that the reason why our programs have remained popular with both our friends and our volunteers is because Welcome Home embodies those values that we most associate with home, like friendship, conviviality, and mutual support. We're inspired and excited to bring the spirit to the Afghan refugees, and we look forward to welcoming them to our community. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Alan. Allison, please.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Your name. Okay.
That's better.
Okay, let's see. My name is Allison Mian. I'm our Deputy Director for the International Rescue Committee's office in Elizabeth, New Jersey. IRC, as similar to Church World Service, is a resettlement agency contracted with the Department of State to resettle refugees. However, we also serve many other humanitarian entrants, as Courtney had mentioned. IRC has been in New Jersey since 1984. Since that time, we've resettled close to 9,000 refugees, including over the past 10 years, mostly special immigrant visa holders and refugees from Afghanistan. Our office in Elizabeth is funded partially by, as is Church World Service, all resettlement agencies are funded partially by US government funding and partially through public donations, individual donations and private donors. We serve over 1,500 individuals each year across many different immigrant statuses. And, you know, our core services are really around case management, economic empowerment, education and learning, and immigration legal services. Those are sort of the 4 core areas. And I know we'll get deeper into what resettlement is and what it looks like. So I'll stop there for now. Maybe just add that I've been at IRC for 9 years now, working in immigrant communities, immigrant refugee communities in New York and New Jersey since 2006. And I'm really happy to just partner with all of you who, as panelists, with all of you on the call to respond to a really disheartening situation right now, and trying to look at the heartening piece of seeing how many people have reached out to help and offer support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison. And of course, my name is Salahuddin Maksut. I serve as the Executive Director of CARE New Jersey, and we are really honored to be hosting this panel of experts who have extensive experience resettling refugees here in New Jersey. So tonight's discussion, as mentioned earlier, talking about how we can get involved. Now you might be asking, who is going to benefit from this discussion? And that answer is a long one, really anyone. If you are a landlord, if you are a real estate agent, if you are a small business owner, if you are part of a corporation, if you have connections within the community, if you are on the board of a house of worship, be it a mosque, church, synagogue, or otherwise, or if you just want to volunteer your time and your effort and donations, if you speak the languages and you want to be a translator, you can benefit from this webinar. So there are many ways to get involved, and we're going to jump right into it with our first topic being on housing. Now, we know right now that the refugees are currently, at least in Jersey, are in Fort Dix. We have about 1,200 of them as of right now, but we anticipate 9,500 coming, potentially more. The question of where will they end up is still up in the air. It is possible that many of them will likely leave New Jersey, with a small percentage remaining in the state. After their paperwork is processed with the State Department and they have the appropriate paperwork, and then they can live throughout the state of New Jersey, they need, of course, to find housing. Housing is top priority right now, as I'm sure everyone on the panel will agree and we'll talk about. So I'm going to ask Allison first to talk a little bit about housing. What does housing look like? How do we find it? Where are primary sources to turn to house so many people? And what makes this situation unique compared to past experiences? People are talking about the Syrian refugees and the Yemeni refugees and other communities that have come in the past, but this instance seems to be unique. Why is that the case? What are your thoughts on this?
Sure, I changed my audio settings. Can you hear me okay still?
That's perfect.
Great. Okay. So, one thing you'll probably hear a bit about tonight is this slight distinction between, refugees who've arrived through the U.S. resettlement program and qualify for formal resettlement program benefits, as compared to some of the Afghan families that may still be in more uncertain immigration statuses when or if and when they leave the base. And so in traditional refugee resettlement, housing is always still a challenge. We look for safe, sanitary, and affordable housing. As resettlement agencies, we work within our organizations through partnerships with local landlords and property owners, in partnership with groups like Welcome Home and others, in partnership with faith-based organizations to identify apartments for families when they arrive. And then work with those same partners to furnish them and get the supplies for them and get them set up. We have pretty strict requirements for what safe, sanitary, and affordable means. We do our best to ensure that housing is within fair market rent values, which are set by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. That can be hard in New Jersey. Quite frankly, the cost of living is very hard, especially in northern New Jersey. And so that does mean sometimes that families are in neighborhoods they might not feel are ideal. And we work with local police departments and others to make sure that the areas and the housing identified is as safe as possible. The unique thing about this situation is we are still uncertain exactly what benefits families will qualify for, depending on the different immigration statuses they may have when they leave the base. We're still working to understand that, but we do understand that there may be more flexibility allowed or other types of temporary housing we may need to look at given the high number of families that may be coming all at once. So apartments are always useful, especially those where a 6-month or a 1-year lease is possible. People are willing to donate space in an apartment. That is always helpful for families getting on their feet. They can save, rather than spending. But typically, and this varies in our agency at IRC, the families would sign a lease directly with a landlord for a unit, and then would either work towards self-sufficiency as soon as possible to pay the cost of that monthly rent, or potentially rely on rental assistance programs, through the public benefits route. I'll pause there and see if others want to add anything.
I would love to have either Courtney or Alan jump in, and if you could either add to both what Allison has mentioned, but also logistically speaking, how do you contact these landlords? How do you find them? How do you find willing landlords? Do they come to you? Do you go to them? How does that communication happen?
Well, thankfully, we've had more coming to us in the past couple of weeks than has traditionally happened, which is nice. But normally, yes, we have a housing and logistics specialist that works at IRC and just does outreach to landlords. So as we have families coming in, they'll look at the case composition, say we need a 2-bedroom apartment for this family, and just begin that search through local resources. I'll say to Alan and what we've worked with Alan and Welcome Home to identify some apartments as well, and we've seen a large number of people offering housing recently. But normally it's us pretty aggressively going out there and trying to convince landlords to rent to families.
Alan, did you want to jump in on that?
Sure. I mean, it's in some ways it feels as an organization, we're coming full circle to the work we started doing in the beginning when we were really focused on housing. And we've been very fortunate to have people come to us with offers, including from one of the local churches who offered their rectory. It's a large space which we can use, or rather I should say, which IRC can use as transitional housing for families who might be arriving on very, very short notice. It's, I think that that Allison is expecting some folks to come on as little as 24 hours notice. And that's just not enough time to find an apartment for a family. So, Airbnb, I know, has been great in offering housing, but this is a terrific resource for us. And, an hour and a half before I joined this call, I was with Allison's housing specialist, Jake, looking at a great 3-bedroom apartment in Jersey City that'll be perfect for a family who's coming. So, I mean, it's a testament to the spirit and generosity of the community that people are reaching out. It seems like there's really a big consensus that the folks who the evacuees from Afghanistan are worthy of our attention and our support. That extends to housing.
Thank you, Alan. I do have a couple of other questions on housing, but I want to also address a question that came into the chat, which is one I had in mind as well. And that is, people are interested in offering space in their own homes. I think we spoke, Alan and others, about this. Maybe Courtney or Sikandar, if you could address this. Can people do this? Can they offer maybe their basement or their room? Are there criteria that have to be met in order to do that, logistically speaking? Or is there some sort of vetting process involved? What does your organization require in order to do that? Maybe Courtney, if you can address that, and I might ask Sikandar to ask afterwards.
Yeah, I can I can rain on that parade, unfortunately, to say that at this time we don't have the green light to pursue those opportunities, not just from an organizational standpoint, but actually from, as Allison said, from our federal partners and the requirements that they have on this program. We're still waiting for some clarification about that, but at this time we don't have the green light to pursue those. Of course, if we did, as you alluded to, we would have to go through a pretty thorough vetting and background check process. These are families with children and are coming from they are vulnerable in many ways, and we need to make sure they are safe themselves. I just want to mention that Airbnb has provided very generous support in this situation and to the refugee program in general. So if people have maybe an apartment or some kind of situation that has a separated room or something with a separate lock on the door, and they are interested in offering that space, I'll put a link to the Open Homes program in the chat function. That is something for people to consider at this time.
Yeah.
Yes. Please do, to all the panelists, share any links as it relates to housing for people to reach out to your organizations, be it landlords or anyone else that has such connections. Sikandar, is there anything that you'd like to add on the topic of housing through your experience? What have you seen in the past, and how have you facilitated, finding locations for people, and anything that we should keep in mind moving forward?
Sure. So in terms of locating family with another, I agree with Courtney. We had some interesting experience in the past where we had to intervene where if an individual refugee was housed with someone else, and they were being forced to clean the house and et cetera, and we had to intervene to get the individual out. So we are going to do our best not to repeat those errors. So in terms of putting a family with another, we going to avoid that. Or if worst case scenario, we're going to go through vetting. We're going to have to vet that family, whether going through CWS or IRC. We're going to work. We've always worked together to make sure we go through proper vetting. Housing, as you all know, is one of the toughest. It's a challenge. We had an issue with Syrian refugees that were coming in. A lot of them, well, some of them, we had to relocate in Jersey City and Patterson. And that cost us a lot. We had to raise a lot of money to relocate those families because of where they were settled. It was not a friendly neighborhood. I'll just leave it at that. We really have to make sure the housing that we are going to settle these families in, they're appropriate houses. We had a situation where we had to file a lawsuit against a landlord because a 3-month-old baby got bit by bed bugs so much that we had to hospitalize that child, and that child was hospitalized for over 3 weeks. So when we house these families, we have to make sure that the house is clean, there are no bed bugs, and also the neighborhood is safe for them to go into, because don't forget, these individuals are coming out of ongoing conflict. They're traumatized. So we want to make sure they don't go through other issues once they're settled here.
Thank you, Sikandar. I had a question come in prior to the event regarding hotels offering their assistance. Allison, would you be able to address this? Ultimately, the question was, we had someone working for the Hyatt Hotel and their management is interested in hosting. And how would that work? Is that common? Do you see that hotels participating, offering their space? And for how long can that last for? Obviously, they cannot live at the hotel. So what arrangements does your organization provide for that?
Yeah, thanks so much. That's a great question. We've been in conversations with a few different hotel chains, both at the New Jersey level, but also nationally, to develop, as Courtney said, our agencies work in many cities, and sometimes, especially if they're looking at discounted rates, all of that can be really helpful for temporary stays, especially if we get a large number of families at once as we're searching for permanent apartments. So we don't know. We could need hotel rooms for a week. We could need hotel rooms for a month. Usually, if it's an extended period of time, then we are looking at accommodations that have cooking facilities. Obviously, at least at IRC, when we do place families in hotels, because permanent housing is not yet available. In almost all cases, it's in a location that has a small cooking facility, like an extended stay or residence inn. So I would say, anyone interested that has hotels available, I'll put in the chat. I know others have put in the chat. At IRC, we're kind of collating right now any interest in any way in one place through a form that we're collecting information. So if people have housing leads for temporary or permanent housing, those can go to that form. I'll post it in the chat.
Please. So for the attendees, please keep an eye on the chat, as documents and links will be shared there, especially as it relates to housing. Okay, I do want to address one topic that was brought up. I think it was in the Q&A, and I meant to address this earlier. So I'm sure everyone has noticed that many organizations, houses of worship, and mosques and churches across the state have been eager to give back, and they have collected goods that they've been sending to the Fort Dix, which is, beautiful and out of love and sincerity and, you know, the desire to help. That might not be the best, you know, action to take as of right now, at least not, you know, in the long term, right? Yes, these goods are helpful for these individuals at Fort Dix, and they will be used by these individuals, and you know, they're going to benefit from it. But they need more than just supplies and goods. They need to also be able to carry these items to their new homes, and a lot of logistics is, you know, behind the scenes in order to manage that. So, well, one thing to keep in mind as well, you know, we spoke with Fort Dix earlier, and I think that they have suggested putting a halt on any donations to the facility. So putting a pause on that until further notice. I think they have 3 warehouses full of goods. I don't know if Sikandar wants to weigh in on that. So I know Sikandar is at ICPC today. He's been managing a lot of the intakes. Sikandar, what can you weigh in a little bit about
Sure.
this situation now?
Sure. So the problem is, yes, there are warehouses full. We are reaching out to people not to hold off on their donation. And look, I'm about long-term solutions. Housing is the #1 priority. You know, we were not really intended to send any supplies, but we were told that they're missing shoes, they're missing clothes, they're coming in with ripped clothes. So we have to respond to that. You know, human dignity matters. Now, that's what we're doing. In terms of that donation at the warehouse, the question is it really getting to people in need? And that's what we were trying to find out today. Because the items were not sorted appropriately, they're just sitting at a warehouse, right? And because of lack of manpower, they're not getting sorted and they're not getting delivered to the people on the base. So what we're doing here at ICPC right now is the donations that we are receiving, we're sorting them, we're labeling them, and we're packaging them appropriately. And we're working with you know, law enforcement to make sure that they're sorted appropriately to get into the base and you know, be given to the people in need. So I do want to encourage people, if in places of worship and nonprofits, when you do collect these items, make sure you sort them and you package them appropriately, because those people at the base, they're working 16, 17 hours a day. They do not have time to sort your stuff. You know, we have to help them, we have to sort them, and we have to send them the way that they want them. So to answer the question, there is a need. There is a need on the base right now. People are in need of items. It's just because of the way the packages were sent, there's a hold off on that.
Thank you, Sikandar. I know Allison addressed a question in the chat as well regarding collecting items. Now I know IRC, and I assume it's the case same as well with CWS. But maybe Alan, if you could speak to a little bit about your organization and how you guys manage goods. What do you guys anticipate, and when do you need it? And how do you collect it, and how does that distribution look like?
Right. Well, everything that's happening right now is on a scale that's completely different from what we're used to doing. And I'm just going to second what's been said, or whatever, several times already, which is that we're asking people to wait and hold on to their donated goods as long as they can, if they're able to. If they have furniture to donate because they're moving, they should probably find another organization. There are many organizations out there, and there's a lot of need out there. And we've never really had trouble finding these kinds of furnishings for apartments that we're setting up, but we really appreciate the offers. And we're maintaining spreadsheets listing every donor, all the contact information, everything that's being offered. And we've responded to every offer with the promise that we'll get back to folks when we know what we need. Particularly, you know, if Sikandar reaches out to us and says, you know, we do need more shoes, or, you know, we need umbrellas or something, you know, then we can collect what we need to collect and deliver to them in a methodical way. But for now, we just don't have the capacity to do this kind of thing.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Keeping track of time, I'm going to move on to the next topic as it relates to financial aid and offering income for the refugees. Now, of course, Allison, I'm going to ask this question to you. What does the State Department offer? I know there are various categories of immigration status for the refugees, so it might depend on their status, what they'll receive from the state. But what does the state offer in terms of financial compensation for the refugees? And then on top of what the state offers, what does your organization offer, either monthly stipends, some sort of like financial compensation to the families?
Sure, that's a great question. And so right now, resettlement agencies are the central point of contact for government assistance that Afghan special immigrant visas will receive, and or that other types of Afghan special immigrants might get when they leave the base. And so under the Refugee Resettlement Program, it's called the Reception and Placement Program, administered by the Department of State. As resettlement agencies, we receive a certain amount of money per person, a portion of which has to go, a minimum portion of which has to go to directly to the refugee family or be paid on their behalf. So it could be paid to a landlord for their security deposit and first month of rent, or for a bus pass, or as a bank card to them so they have access to cash. Under the Reception and Placement Program, RNP, that amount, and Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a little bit, is what is that number? $1,125 per person. Am I off there?
Around $1,100. Let's stay there. That's safe.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's per person. So if it's a family of 5, then they would get, that amount per times 5. Usually it's a one-time grant. It's not a monthly assistance. So we use that typically to secure housing and the basic needs in the first month. And then either they're routed to sort of an early self-sufficiency program that's run through one of the resettlement agencies that can provide some additional financial support, or they may be routed to assistance through the county welfare agencies and be able to access public benefits. So we anticipate that will be the same model. We're still working to understand among the different sort of statuses of Afghan special immigrants, what types of public benefits they will be eligible for. So that is something we're kind of waiting for additional guidance on.
Okay, and then to this, and there was a question in the chat, and it's an important one because many people have asked this. How can individuals sponsor refugees or refugee families? Now, this sponsorship opportunity, correct me if I'm wrong, it might come after the rerouting. So say they've gone through the process with IRC or CWS, they've extended, they've exhausted their resources there. Maybe the sponsorship opportunity might come when maybe they're in the hands of Welcome Home Jersey City or Sikandar Khan's organization. Is that correct to assume? And if so, what does sponsorship look like? Can a mosque sponsor a family, say their rent, or just a blank check? I'm not sure how that would work. Maybe Courtney, and then I think Alan can maybe weigh in on this after.
Sure, I can talk about this because Church World Service, one of our bigger programs nationally is particularly faith community co-sponsorship is what we call it, but also not just faith communities. I've heard of Rotary clubs coming together, or even companies coming together to sponsor a family, just as you described. And typically it involves, working with the resettlement agency. The resettlement agency is still very closely involved with the family to provide case management and to kind of make sure that, things are moving through all of these social service systems properly. for the Afghan families, what we're really trying to do right now as a resettlement agency community is sort out what kinds of services we need to make sure are done, what kinds of services they will need most urgently. And then I think in a few weeks, we will all be able to come together to go to the community and to go particularly to faith communities, like you said, who I think are going to be very important in this effort, to say this is what sponsorship could look like if this is something that your community is interested in participating in. Then having a process set up for how to engage in that. So I think my message there is, yes, absolutely. This is something that has happened in resettlement for a long time, and stay tuned for more information.
Thank you, Courtney. Alan, in your experience, how does your organization manage this when it comes to financial aid for the refugee families?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we don't co-sponsor families per se, and I can't really add anything to what Courtney said. She stated the process pretty well. One of our board members is the church administrator at a church that is co-sponsored for families with Church World Service, and the commitment is to be in it for the long haul. This is not just we throw a little money at the situation, we get to shake hands and have a meal together, and then we walk away and feel good about ourselves. This is intensive work, and it involves a lot of people and a lot of commitment. And I've seen a lot of organizations do this very well. I think that's something that a lot of the agencies and a lot of organizations like ours is looking at is community sponsorship, where community organizations like Welcome Home or GERA, and there are many other organizations around the state of New Jersey like ours, One World, One Love in Elizabeth, Refugee Assistance Partners, Refugee Assistance Morris Partners. RAMP, in fact, does co-sponsor a number of families. I think Allison can probably speak to what they do more, but it's definitely something, especially with the scale of what we might expect, that we hope that other organizations can consider. I was on a call with the Religious Action Center, which is the social action program of Reform Judaism, and we were speaking about congregations that could be interested in doing just this thing.
Thank you, Alan. Question that I'm not sure who, or I guess many of you could answer this as well, is of course long-term is important. People do also want to offer maybe petty cash or gift cards or even Uber kind of credits or other sorts of opportunities that are out there. Does anyone want to weigh in on how you process this, how you receive that, how you distribute it, and how can someone actually offer those? I know Alan, we spoke about this, and I think Allison as well. So Alan, if you want to jump in on that.
Yeah, sure. So we have a bespoke link for those who want to donate and specifically help the Afghans who have been evacuated in recent weeks. And we will reserve that money for housing purposes. There may be instances where, perhaps we need to pay a broker's fee, which might not be something that the resettlement agency would do, but we're not bound by some of the same rules. So we can do that. We can facilitate things. We could purchase things for the apartment or phones or bicycles or computers, these sorts of things that aren't necessarily part of the package, initially. So we do welcome donations, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Alan. Allison, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think just to echo Courtney and Alan's statements a bit. We want to harness the amazing outpouring of support right now, and as things stand now, what we think will be most needed is financial support for families that may not be eligible for benefits. And so, I know across Church World Service and Welcome Home, any of those private funds that are raised would supplement what we get from the Department of State to support these families, which, as I said, is very minimal to kind of get families off the ground, and allows us to respond most effectively, whether that is renting a hotel room or getting people food, whatever that might be. So we're asking, really focusing right now on cash donations. I know some people, that to be quite frank is more helpful than collecting toothbrushes, and not to say those are not helpful efforts, but really right now what we need is, given the situation is so fluid and there's so many unknowns, we need to be able to respond in a way that can meet the needs of families. One thing I did mention was we do anticipate sort of transportation being in need. And so if people want to, at IRC, we are taking donations of sort of e-gift cards for Uber and Lyft as we think about logistics of getting people from place to place. And so I can similarly put our information in the chat. I know there's a lot happening there. So I've put it there a few times, but we'll hopefully send some of these links out afterwards. So if people want to make those donations, we can, either in cash donations or those gift cards, we can definitely find a way to accept those.
Thank you, Allison. Okay, I'm going to change gears onto the next topic. Sikandar, do you think you can address the issue of employment? How does GERA help refugee families find jobs in their community? How do they place them with maybe small businesses or employers that are willing to take individuals that with various skills or maybe even language barriers? What's your experience with that in the past with other refugees?
Sure. So one of the things we did when Syrian refugees came in, there are a lot of resources that are available on the county level. So we encourage the Passaic County commissioners to welcome refugees. And what that means is Passaic County government activating their services for the refugees that are coming in. So some of the departments within the county, and every county throughout the state, you have the County Workforce Development Center, you have the County One-Stop Welfare, also the community colleges. They already have those services available. So through Passaic County Workforce Development Center, for example, we work with counselors to help find jobs for the Syrian refugees. Through welfare, we help them to get into Section 8 for housing. So those are the same resources. Next week here in Passaic County, Commissioner Assad Akhtar will be introducing a resolution to welcome Afghan refugees. And what that means is that all county resources are available for the refugees that are coming into Passaic County. And we're encouraging every county and every elected official to take that step. In terms of language is a major barrier. So many agencies encourage refugees to enroll themselves into either county ESL classes or regular school ESL classes. Those ESL classes are not designed for refugees that are coming in. What we did was through GERA, Global Emergency Response and Assistance, we partnered with other nonprofits like North Jersey Interfaith Care and the YMCA of Wayne to craft a program for refugees. So one of the things we crafted it's called NJ Rebuild, that focuses on the assimilation of refugees, breaking the language barrier, and also identifying what other barriers they have. If they're suffering from mental health, then we work with specialists to refer them. We're not specialized in every field. So we have to work with other agencies and specialists to make sure we refer them appropriately. We had the NJ Rebuild program at YMCA. 3 times a week, the refugees would come in. You had people from different churches, synagogue, mosque that would come in and tutor those families. to not only break the language barrier, but to also help them learn about the society and the culture. So it was a very successful program, and that's what we hope to do with more refugees that are coming in statewide.
Thank you, Sikandar. Courtney, if I could ask you the same question, but also job applications, maybe to someone who might not speak the language and is not familiar with the process. How does CWS assist in finding these jobs and applying for them and making sure that the families do have stable income outside of the benefits that the organization offers?
Sure, employment's one of the biggest things that we do really with new families. I know both IRC and CWS have employment specialists who work on finding companies and recruitment agencies that are looking for all levels of employees. The employment specialists also work on kind of explaining the job search process. Sometimes I say that, the job search process in the United States, it's an American cultural thing. It's this specific thing to our country that's very different if you're coming in from another context. And so our employment team talks that through with them, helps them to develop a resume, sometimes taking what they have their CV from their home country and translating that into a resume that works for an American job search. And then trying to place them into kind of their first job here in the United States and reassuring them that this is just their first job. We continue to work with them on identifying their longer term goals, their kind of career path that they're really looking for, and working with them sometimes over years for some of our clients to try to get them closer to those goals or into their profession that they had in their home country. It can be a long process, particularly for those who are coming from professions like in medicine or in architecture and engineering. It's very different licensing processes in the United States, but we do try to work with people as much as possible to get them to those goals.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Alan. Alan, quick question. So say someone wants to volunteer their time in crafting resumes and these CVs. Does Welcome Home Jersey City kind of help coordinate that? How have you guys done it in the past? And can someone sign up to do this? Is there a link? Should they email you? How should they communicate that with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have an employment committee. It's run by, we have various committees that are headed up by a different board member. And, at that committee, we do many of the things that Courtney described. We help our friends craft a resume, understand the job that they might be interested in, might want to apply for, and practice interviewing. We do accompaniment work. We bring folks to their first interview, and we generally talk about their career ambitions. We also refer people to other agencies. For instance, in New York, there's the Refugee Employment Partnership that's done a great job of placing folks who in Jersey City can commute fairly easily into Manhattan. There's another organization, Upwardly Global, that works with folks who have arrived in the United States with skills and certifications, and it just takes a special skill to place folks with those skills, perhaps in medicine or law or business. And we don't have all of those connections here, and we're not going to pretend to do stuff that we can't do. So we do partner with other organizations, and we just try to. We're going to be meeting with a group of our Arabic-speaking clients pretty soon. For a meal, just kind of to talk about things in general, because sometimes these group conversations around work and around change of career are difficult to have one-on-one. So we engage, our translators and folks who are perhaps more relatable than me, for instance, to those of our clients who don't speak English as well and come from a different culture. We do our best to meet people where they are.
Thank you, Alan. I'm going to ask all the panelists to please share any contact information in the chat. And of course, we're going to do this as well after. But for the sake of, handing it out now, because there are many people who are offering positions to refugees, over the chat, which is beautiful. And we want to thank you all for doing so. But so I guess the message is, if you are a an employer and you have opportunities and you are willing to take on refugees and hire them, then communicate with any of the 4 panelists and their organization. Reach out to them, let them know that you have availabilities, and they'll let you know if it's something that they can work with. So please do research either their website, contact them, or check the chat for their email or phone numbers. I want to jump to the next topic that Alan weighed in on, and that is the issue of language. And I guess this is, of course, something that is going to be a hurdle. It was weighed in. Sikander also kind of mentioned it as well with the classes and the county. 2 things. One, obviously they have to learn English, but also how are they going to today, how are they going to communicate with people? So are your organizations taking interpreters and translators? And is there criteria for that? Do they have to be certified? Do they have to, is there a bar they have to meet? Or is it just right now, maybe there's a need and you're just taking anyone that has a fluency in a particular language? So I might ask Allison and Alan to weigh in on that. Allison, if you could maybe address that question of translators.
Sure, this is slightly linked, but I know there are a number of questions in the chat about how to support the efforts at Fort Dix, and none of our 4 organizations are directly involved in supporting some of those efforts. IRC is one of the NGOs at Joint Base McGuire, Dix, Lakehurst, but that's an effort coordinated through our national office and in partnership with the U.S. government. And so I do know that IRC is, if there are Dari or Pashto speaking individuals, I know that they are looking for interpreters at the base. I can post, and IRC is recruiting through our careers portal, both for interpreters at the U.S. government facilities where we're working, as well as for sort of what are being called special immigrant visa cohort assistants. And so I can post both of those links if anyone is interested in paid positions short term, including interpretation and translation. That's not, again, directly through our office as IRC in New Jersey, but IRC's national office is managing that. So I can share those in the chat. But I would also say we do anticipate long-term needing interpreters, people with Dari and Pashto speaking skills as volunteers. And so I'll also post our local volunteer application. That would be appropriate if you're interested in tutoring refugee youth or adults in English, teaching English to those adults once they're a little bit, once they're in our community. So I'll share both of those, all 3 of those links in the chat. And again, hopefully they'll get circulated afterwards as well. Sure.
Thank you. And Alan, is there any link or anything you'd like to share with us so we can communicate with you to offer translation services?
Yeah. Actually, I shared our link tree a couple of times, which contains discrete links within it to do various different things, including if you've got a job opportunity for somebody, or if you can translate. And I have to say, I think not even within the first week after, the tragedy happened, that Kabul fell and people were clamoring, at the gates of the airport there, we received 54 offers to translate or interpret in Dari and Pashto through our form. And that's just amazing. And of course, right now we don't need those services, and I forwarded them all to Allison. But we will in the coming weeks and months. Probably this is a longer term thing, as Allison implied. Once folks are kind of settled into the community, once the basic resettlement work has been done by Allison and Courtney and case managers, then we're going to want to come around and support families as best we can. And that means oftentimes speaking in their native languages. And so, you know, already an Afghan American community in Jersey City is beginning to coalesce around us. And we're kind of organizing folks that whom we've known for years, and inviting them to work with new volunteers to explain what we do, to explain what we can expect, and to explain how we can be supportive. It's not a straightforward thing. There's really, this kind of work involves a little bit of prior knowledge and orientation, I guess. You know, I just want to add one thing. My friend Ahmed posted in our chat that, you know, he's the director of the Jersey City Islamic Center, and he's just offering to support. And again, you know, the partnerships that we have, we're 4 organizations here that, you know, I think we all take pride in what we do, but we don't do it in a vacuum. And, you know, when we return to running Fun Club, our weekly program indoors again, we're probably going to do it at his school, at the Jersey City Islamic Center School. And they have so many resources. It's really a matter of connecting people to the right support in the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for flagging Ahmed's comment. It's great to see that the mosques and the churches are partnering up with the organizations. And that's, you know, one of the best ways to get involved is to encourage your house of worship or any organization that you're involved in that has the resources and the network and the people and the know-how to give back and to participate. So definitely encourage the organizations that you are involved in, whether you're on the board or you're just a community member. Encourage them to reach out and, you know, set up a call to discuss logistics about how you guys can partner up and work together. Changing on to the next topic, I know we're close to 7:30 now. Sikandar, I want to ask you a question because it's been repeated in the chat, and it's kind of off the cuff, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, but it's the question about unaccompanied minors. Do we have any information on this? There are rumors that there are some unaccompanied minors coming to Jersey. You know, do you know the update on that? And additionally, you know, how has your organization worked with unaccompanied minors in the past, and foster care and maybe finding homes for them? And how can we prioritize finding Afghan homes for these individuals, you know, being considerate of course, the language barrier and other cultural issues?
Sure, that's a great question. We actually never worked with any, just for the record, never worked with any foster kids before. We are hearing the same rumors that there are kids coming in without parents. It's not confirmed. There were several cases in Virginia that were confirmed. We had people there that currently attorneys are working on that situation in Virginia and in Cali. In New Jersey, no information is coming out of the base yet. We don't know how many are there and how old they are, and we don't have any information on that. In terms of helping, we are in constant communication with the governor's office. The task force the governor put together, he signed an executive order. We are also working with a group of attorneys to educate us on that. We have a meeting coming up later this week to talk to attorneys that are specialized in that field. And just, just want to let you guys know, we registered about 540 people from the Afghan community to translate, and more than 90% of those individuals are willing to adopt. So the response is just amazing. There are people there that are willing to adopt, they're willing to translate from the Afghan community and other communities as well. But as of right now, it's such a fluid situation. The DoD military is working on logistics. They're going through medical screening. The refugees are going through medical screening. They're going through security clearance. So we have to kind of give them their space to do what they have to do. And hopefully in the near future, we will be able to get more information. DoD is not going to be in charge of the processing forever. They're going to have to hand that process over to the state. That's why the governor put the task force together. But as of right now, we're going to have to, bear with them and let them do the medical screening and the security clearance.
Do we know the exact number of refugees at the base right now? Are you aware of that number?
No, we don't. That number has not been released yet.
Okay. Thank you.
No, refugees are coming in hundreds and thousands, but we don't know the exact number.
Okay. And also to that point is, how long can we anticipate? Or is it a couple of weeks or maybe a month for future arrivals? And how long will they remain at the base? When will they eventually leave the base to find new homes? Is this something that you're aware of now, or is it too soon to ask?
It really depends. It really depends on the case. Some individuals will be released, and this is the information that we're obtaining within the next 2 months, and some might be there for up to a year. It really depends on the individual's case. We got mixed answers. We were told by certain individuals that they might be there for 6 months to a year, and then we were told by another, official that they will be there for 2 months. It really depends on the individual case. They're just, people came into, as Allison mentioned earlier, different statuses, some P2. It depends what, immigration status they're holding.
Mindful of, our panelists and their time. If anyone has to hop off, please please do so. We don't want to hold you. But I do want to open it up to the public to ask some questions. There are a lot of things that we did not touch. There's so much that we could be discussing, like, for example, medical doctors and mental health. How does that work? These are individuals who have suffered immense trauma, not only coming from a war-torn country, but going through this resettlement process and traveling from one country to another and flying here and there, all the way making it to New Jersey, and now having to live in a military base. That's a lot. It's a lot. So the question is, how can maybe doctors get involved? Is there an initiative going on right now about this? Maybe someone, Skender, I'm not sure if you want to weigh in on that. Go ahead, yeah.
Sure. So they're actually, I was in contact with the base yesterday. They're looking for doctors that speak Pashto and Dari to communicate with the refugees. So if you are a doctor and if you speak Pashto or Dari, please email me. I shared my email. I'll send it over to the folks at the base. Also, if you want to be a translator, just shoot me an email. I'll make sure I send that over to the governor's office. They are putting a list of volunteers together for the task force, that can be translators in the near future. So for medical, field, if you're in the medical field, please do email us so we can forward your information over.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sikandar. Alan, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, no, this is a really, really important issue, and I'm glad that you brought it up, and I'm glad that Sikandar addressed it like this. Again, this is outside of our wheelhouse and specialization in our organization, but there are terrific organizations in New Jersey, like Cornerstone Counseling, for instance, who provide faith-based counseling in languages that are spoken by the friends that we try to help. And so we lean on them. Again, it's another example of partnership. I mean, we partner very closely in Jersey City with the Department of Health and Human Services, which also is the home for the Division of Immigrant Affairs. who are terrifically supportive of all of our organizations. I mean, Churchville Service and Welcome Home are partners with the Division of Immigrant Affairs, and they are always giving us leads for mental health issues and the ways that our friends or clients can get help.
An attendee has a question that they want to ask a panelist, I'm going to ask that they use the raise hand feature. The raise hand feature will pop up on my screen, and then I will be able to select you and allow you to talk, and then you can join to ask your question. And if you feel more comfortable asking a question, of course, you have the Q&A. But before I choose anyone to ask a question, I do want to encourage everyone that right now, obviously, housing is very important, all right? But I want you to consider donating financially to these organizations, right? Because once they have the means, they can use those funding where they know where it's required, where it's best needed. So give them the ability to help those in need with your financial donations. Find their websites online and consider making a monetary donation. That way they can use those funds where they know is most appropriate, whether it be housing or finding furniture or other things, medical bills, etc., for the refugee families. So please do consider donating to them online. Now I'm gonna choose, I think Farhaj was, Farhaj, I'm gonna choose you to speak. Farhaj, can you hear us?
I can hear you, and I want to say thank you to everybody and your organizations for what you do and what you have done and what you're going to continue to do. So thank you, first of all. Second of all, Saladin, finally, nice to see you. I know you and I have been on many WhatsApp groups going back and forth. For the purposes of everybody's time, I'm going to keep this short. In central New Jersey, many Shia Muslims and many interfaith groups have collected physical goods. Unfortunately, we are now finding out that particular items are being duplicated ad nauseum, meaning that there are more than enough of X, Y, and Z items. The question is, where do you think, any of you think, we can get a good list of what is needed acutely today, tomorrow, and the next few weeks? Thank you for all you guys do, and thank you very much.
Sure, that's a good question. The base Red Cross is currently working on a portal. They're gonna put that out hopefully by next week. That we can share with you all once it's out. You can get clear info off of there. It will give you a clear list of everything that is in need. So once that is out, the portal is published, I will make sure I send it out to all of you.
Thank you, Sikandar. And I can also assume that maybe if there's a surplus of goods that, I don't know if Alan, your organization would be able to house those goods. Is there anywhere you can take them and keep them on standby when the time comes for distribution?
To be honest, we don't.
Okay.
We have a storage unit, and it's packed to the gills. So we are asking folks to hold on to what they want to donate until we're ready to accept it, until we know what we really need.
If I might just jump in,
Yeah.
we secure a warehouse in North Jersey. We're working on securing a warehouse in South Jersey. Once we secure that, I'll let you all know. You can store that in that warehouse, and if any organization is in need of anything, they can contact us and we can allow them to pick items up off there. But please, I encourage, I reached out to so many places of worship and nonprofits the past couple of days. Let's work together. Let's work under one umbrella so we can collaborate and not duplicate efforts. And that's what's happening right now. It's becoming chaotic, and we are doing our best to reach out to people, not to duplicate, efforts. But I will make sure I send out the address to the warehouse once we have it secured.
Thank you. And I'm going to also, any information that's shared on this webinar, be it the actual recording of the webinar, but also the links and the contact information will be shared with everyone that registered. So you will receive an email with all of the information. Thank you, Farhaj, for the question, and thank you, Sikandar and Alan, for weighing in. I'm going to now ask Dr. Ali Musfi to ask your question. Doctor.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Great work. I feel that one of the most important needs of today for the work you do would be financial. And I have a very radical suggestion, which I would like you to consider. There are certain companies which have made a ton of money with this war. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman had a 1,200% return. Boeing had 1,000% return. General Dynamics had a 600% return, and all. We have been fighting these people on social media and other places, etc. How about going and reaching out to them and asking them for money to support the refugees that they have helped create? Maybe blood money, maybe not, but whatever it is, this may be one way to get large chunks of money over a period of time. Thank you.
I totally agree. I think maybe Allison, you're nodding your head. Is there anything you want to weigh in on there?
No, I just wanted to add, I really appreciate sort of creative and out of the box thinking in this response. I think we need it. I, would love to see a national effort to do some of that outreach to those types of corporations to raise some funds. But it's clear that we won't be able to provide an adequate response unless it is a public and private partnership. So, I guess I would just say there are definitely national level advocacy efforts. I haven't seen that one yet, but national level advocacy efforts that people can also participate in terms of asks of the U.S. government, asks kind of nationwide that can support some of these efforts. Thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, go ahead. Courtney, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add that we know that there are the national efforts include the State Department are talking to major corporations that have stepped forward to say that they want to support this effort any way they can. So some of these conversations are happening at multiple levels above us right now, and obviously we don't have all the answers about who is being engaged at that level. But I do want to say that something that Allison and I have talked about locally is that this is really, we know that New Jersey can step forward to support a major crisis. We saw it happen during a pandemic, and we would love to see a similar level of crisis response here locally. We've just seen it happen. We've just seen so much generosity come through the community, and really recognizing that this is a once in a generation, hopefully, level of crisis.
Thank you, Courtney. I want to allow Michael to ask his question.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this panel. I am a journalist just entering this space that is helping Afghan refugees. Like many others who want to help, what are some basics we should know so we can treat Afghans with the utmost respect for their situation? How can I help without re-traumatizing them? I do not want to parachute into this situation. Rather, I want to help the community in the way that they want to be helped.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone want to jump in?
I think that would have been a great question for Sikandar. So I don't want to, I wish he was still here. I'll see if I have some thoughts, but Courtney or Ellen, go ahead.
I was going to say that, something that we talk about a lot when we're training new staff or onboarding new staff is really taking the lead from the client themselves and approaching approaching the situation with them with humility, both cultural humility and personal humility. And I think just being honest of, please tell me if this is not an appropriate thing to do. I want to be sure I'm respectful of you and treating it with dignity. I think that is the first good place to start, is coming at this with humility. I have seen in the chat a number of fantastic suggestions about Afghan community-based groups who are organized, who can definitely provide some pointers if you're really looking to get involved and learn in a culturally appropriate way. I think that's another great place to look as well.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your question and for joining us.
I might add also, I think one really important thing is respecting that people may not want to share their story and their experience with you right away as being really important. People are here where they are right now and need what they need. And if they feel comfortable and build trust in sharing their story with you, they will as they see fit, but to not proactively ask that and to really respect people's desire to keep things confidential. I know many of our Afghan families in years past have been very reticent to share things on social media, to have pictures taken, even more so now, I think, with the current security concerns. And so we're really cautious about respecting families' confidentiality and desire to keep their stories and their journeys here private.
That's a great point. And it's funny, I don't know how many volunteer orientations I've participated with at Church World Service, but one thing that always stuck with me is the recommendation not to ask the family that you're working with, so what happened that brought you here? And it's a normal human curiosity that drives us to want to ask that question. I can't tell you how many journalists, and I'm bringing this up because Michael, who asked the question, is a journalist, have asked me, can you set up an interview with a recently arrived evacuee? And first of all, it's not up to me. It's really it's up to Allison and Courtney. But I'm sure that they don't want to do that. I'm sure that all of the folks that are arriving will feel a little bit like they're in a fishbowl if we circle around them to pour questions at them, and that's not the way I would want to be treated. I'm pretty introverted and self-conscious as it is, despite the fact that I'm participating in this panel. I imagine that most of the folks who are going to come into our midst are the same way.
Thank you, Alan. I want to allow Julia to ask her question. Julia, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm a reporter as well for Documented. We're an immigration news website. Thank you so much for this panel. This has been really helpful. I have kind of a more policy related question, but I'm wondering what effect Trump administration refugee policies had on refugee resettlement infrastructure and resources in New Jersey, if any, and how you're seeing those effects possibly play out now with Afghan refugees.
Thanks for that question. I can share that because we had refugee resettlement and then had the program in our Jersey City office closed in 2018. That was directly due to the reduction in refugee resettlement under the previous administration. And we saw in New Jersey a couple of our other partners also not be able to participate in the US refugee resettlement program. Nationally, that's resulted in the closure of 100 program sites And so that is definitely something that the national agencies are working through right now in addressing this current crisis is how to accommodate this evacuation, provide these people with the quality of services that they deserve and really need. But at the same time, we're not back up to the capacity to serve the numbers that we really need to be able to do right now.
Thank you so much, Courtney. And thank you, Julia, for your question. Okay. I want to allow Wahab to ask questions. So I'm going to bring him up. Wahab, can you hear us?
You hear me?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. This is Wahab Nasri. I'm an American citizen. I'm an Afghan. A couple of questions. First of all, I would like to really thank the entire audience. This was a beautiful setup, and I'm very grateful for everything and every single person here is so well versed and so wonderfully everything has been done. And the reason I am calling is that I have been online and as well as involved in many other refugee tasks as a translator. I speak in both languages very fluently in Pashto as well, but it's a little bit rusty, but I could handle it. And via phone, and that is the reason for it is that I have so much to do in my retirement time that I would like to really minimize the traveling. That would be a possibility. And also, I do not mind if I would speak to Michael and I would give him my number if he would like to know what are the sensitivity issues with Afghan refugees, because I have dealt with few of them in Westchester Refugee Task Force, and that is in Connecticut. So that possibly I might probably help a little bit, but overall I think you guys answered it beautifully, and not to overwhelm them, and as they are really, it would take a while for them to really open up. So one last question, you were saying that how we could possibly want to donate outside of needed items, something like, money. Where would that place be? Would that be a care institution or IRC or any other place? Could you possibly add that to the letters? Because I have registered for this Zoom meeting. That would be nice to really know that. So that's about it.
Thank you, Wahab. Absolutely. I think to the point of offering donations to the organizations, after this event, we will send out an email to everyone that registered with the details, with the various links that were shared, and with a link to donate to the organizations. So you will have that opportunity. So please keep a lookout in your email for that. But thank you, Wahab. Anyone want to weigh in on any of the comments or questions that Wahab mentioned?
Just that one of the links that I shared in terms of for volunteer interpreters, particularly volunteer interpreters who are willing to do things over the phone, like Wahab mentioned, is a service called Tarjimly, which is used internationally to connect volunteer interpreters with clients or humanitarian workers who need interpretation. It's something that we're telling our clients about as a potential resource for themselves as they're out in the community. I can say that as an agency, we either hire case managers who are bilingual or trilingual or multiple other languages. And then we also use phone interpretation services to facilitate communication.
Thank you so much, Courtney. And thank you so much, Wahab, for the questions, the comments, for your participation. So I'm going to ask, okay. We're gonna wrap up at 8 o'clock, so I'm gonna ask that this be the, forgive me, I know there are so many questions, but I want to respect the time of our panelists. So I think this will be the last question. Oops, I was gonna choose someone, but I lost them. So I'm gonna ask Marina. Oh no, here, Brother Awais, I'm sorry. Well, so Brother Awais, I know you were there. You've been waiting for quite a while, so we're gonna ask Brother Awais to ask his question. Brother Awais, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much for having such an informative webinar. Previously, we have been in the dark. And my question is very simple. There have been individuals who are very passionate, of course, in the circumstances. They are collecting goods for the refugees based on certain lists that they have. Is it a good idea to promote them? I have seen their flyers at different places, or should it be through the organizations?
So to answer the question, Brother Awais, what we're suggesting now is having individuals hold off on collecting further goods. And if they have any, that they coordinate with the base. The base is asking that people, communicate that with them prior to making the drop off, but also to communicate with organizations like Gira, Skandar Khan's. They have a warehouse in North Jersey where they can store things for the time being. The quick answer is to just hold off on anything. Whatever you do have, keep it in safe storage. And then when the time comes, inshallah, we can, inshallah, distribute it amongst those that are in need of it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And God bless you all for all the effort that you're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. Thank you so much. Okay, now I'm gonna forgive me, as I mentioned her name, so I want to, give her the opportunity. So Marina, I'm going to call on you to ask, and this would be the last question. So thank you so much, Marina, for joining us. Can you hear us?
Mute. Okay.
Oh,
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
It's Marnie, but that's all right. I'm used to Marina.
Sorry.
Yes. You've pretty much answered what I had in mind. I'm a member of a very generous congregation, and they respond beautifully to actually donating things. But I just want to be clear that right now, financial help is more important. And because I want to take this back to the congregation and assure them that even though it isn't as hands-on, it's what you need.
I would say so, yes.
Oh,
go ahead, Allison. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, like Courtney said before, there may be opportunities in the coming weeks. We may have more clarity on how faith-based groups or small groups of individuals can, co-sponsor a family or be sort of assigned a family, one specific family to work with in their community. We want to make sure we do that in a way that safeguards clients, in a way that provides community groups and volunteers the support we know they need to work with these populations. And so we want to do it in the best way possible. So right now, the most effective is a contribution to one of the organizations here that will be working directly with families. But again, as soon as we have more information on those other types of opportunities and on the potential for, as you said, a generous congregation to support one or two families, we'll certainly be in touch. And that's why we're kind of trying to collect as much information and interest as possible. So when we know what that ask is and how to make that ask in the most effective way possible, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marnie, to you and your congregation for the work that you all are doing. Okay, so I do want to respect the time of our panelists. So unfortunately, we cannot take any further questions, but if you do have questions, please feel free to email us and we will try to communicate and direct you to one of the respected organizations that have joined us today. I want to say thank you so much to all of our panelists that participated in the conversation. I've learned a lot from you all. We've covered so much, and there's really so much more that we could have continued to learn. But I'm sure as the situation unfolds, we'll be in communication with you all to distribute the information that you've provided. Once again, I will be sending out an email with the various links and forms and website URLs that people can use to communicate with your organizations and to apply for various opportunities, to volunteer, to give their time, and to donate, of course, as it has been mentioned already, the importance of donating. So again, thank you guys so much. We appreciate all the effort that you do to help those in need. And thank you. God bless all of you both. But yeah. All right, everyone, have a good night. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. Have a good evening.